Hey, Jay.
Good morning, Natalie.
How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm good. You know, the other morning I called you. I was up bright and early, and I
You
sang the
did.
song.
It was really, would you like to sing since
I
I'm
would.
selfish and I always sing? Go ahead.
Well, I can't remember even the song I was so excited about.
Then this is a failure. We have just
Okay, I
failed.
can do Rise and Shine. Rise and shine and give God the glory, glory. Rise and shine and give God the glory, glory. Together now. Rise and
Rise
shine
and shine and give God the glory. Yeah, I know. We love that song. We learned that at camp.
Yeah, that
Like
was
when
good.
we were in elementary school. But this is not about us.
That's true.
It's about Bob.
The concert is over, folks. We've
Yeah,
got to move
and you're
on.
welcome. We're going to move on because we have an amazing caregiver. We are so excited to have Bob K here with us. Bob's my new bestie. He doesn't
Bob
know
got
that
up
I'm
really early to meet
Bob.
with us, Natalie.
Bob got up early and he thought, I didn't sign up for this.
Especially the singing. So.
Yeah, that is caregiving 101. I didn't sign up for this exactly. So, Jay, tell us about Bob.
So I usually start with, we have a boy, and we always
it's
are
a
so
boy.
excited
It's a
because
live
the
boy.
male caregivers so frequently are hard to find, to track down because they don't raise their hand as frequently as they should. So today we have Bob K with us, and I'm going to tell you, Bob, when I read your story, I don't even know where to begin. For everyone that we have as a guest, we ask them just to tell us a little bit about their caregiving experience and narrative. And what you wrote me was, it's a letter basically, and it's beautiful. And in it, you shared that you and your wife, Pat, met through her ex-boyfriend, which was not typical. I love
I
that.
think that's fantastic personally.
You raised two children, you built a company working side by side, you struggled with the medical system, and then you walked with Pat through some of the most unimaginable parts of cancer. And you ended that letter with, even after 4 years, 4 months, 2 days, this letter was difficult to write. But if it helps others, and I love that, Bob, and I just want you to know that whatever you have to say today, I'm absolutely sure it's going to help others. And we are so blessed and excited to have you here with us today.
Yay! Welcome, Bob.
Thank you very much, JJ and Natalie. I appreciate the kind words.
So I'm ready. Let's get started.
Let's
so,
get- I love to start. I'll start.
Well,
That's
go
what
for
everybody was like, what was that pause about?
Yeah.
It's okay. I was like, JJ, would you like to ask? I'll start.
Yeah.
So Bob, typically I like to say, hold on one second, Eugene. I'm getting feedback for some reason. Can you hear feedback?
I can.
No?
I'm hearing it really like I'm hearing myself.
Okay.
Let me talk. Can you hear it on mine?
I can't hear it on yours. I was hearing it on mine.
Bob, say something.
No, it's good on my end.
No. Okay.
Okay. All right. Let me just do this. I'm going to mess something. Okay. All right, Eugene, we're going right back in. All right, Bob. I am ready with my first question. I love to always say, start from the beginning. You can, basically when you were born, but you can skip over to the good part. From the beginning, you were born, but skip through. So let's give a little backstory about you and your wife. I do want to hear about the how you guys met, and then kind of walk through to, hey, this is where caregiving kind of started though. But give us a little backstory because I got to know about your little life.
Oh, okay. I met Pat when she was 16. I was a senior in high school. My best friend was dating her, and they were part of a church group that the church was literally right down the street from Pat's house, about 2 blocks away. I lived many miles away out in Agora out here, and I had a little motorcycle. I would come out to visit. I played guitar, was part of the youth group. And so over the years, we became friends. And one of the things that would later on to turn out to be ironic is we went to a small youth group meeting up in Big Bear. And right down the street, at the same time, they were building the Big Bear Solar Observatory. And 100 years later, our company would come to work for the Big Bear Solar Observatory.
Okay, that's really cool.
It was cool. Went up to, it's a little town right on Big Bear Lake called Fawnskin. And they built the observatory out on a jetty that they built out on the lake to surround it with water to make it easier to observe the sun. But I'm not kidding you. It was like, it couldn't have been more than a half a mile away from the camp where we went. So I went to her grad night when she graduated. And from there, the relationship grew.
Yeah.
And then I don't know, we used to sit in the car in the parking lot, dark part of the parking lot, and do a little necking. And,
Was that at the
Bob.
church?
Even-
No, hold on.
Oh, Bob.
I mean, it was, pretty daring for an engineer type, let's just say.
That's okay. So, how long were you married? So you guys dated, but how long were you married?
45 years.
45 years.
Yeah, 1974 was actually May 11th was a Sunday.
Yeah.
And so I still remember the night I proposed. I did in fact get down on one knee.
Oh.
It was just out of the blue, and I couldn't believe she said yes. We had nothing. I had my old, ancient station wagon that burned more oil than it did gas.
I had a Jeep like that, Bob,
Oh, did you? Yeah. Oh man.
but it was good. I loved that Jeep.
Yeah.
It was great for the summer, and that's it.
Oh yeah. I at 19, I had known Pat a little bit already. I got thrown out of the house. Part of my craziness at the time, I had actually planned to go to school in Indiana to become a pastor.
Yeah.
And since then, I've kind of fallen away from the church. I'm not an atheist, but I'm not religious so much anymore. But my mom and I had an argument, falling out. She threw me out. And I mean, literally everything I could fit in my station wagon. Within a week of the argument, I was gone.
Yeah.
And a friend of mine was kind enough, after sleeping in my car a couple of nights, his parents rented me half a room. And so, but what I remember at that time was the support that Pat gave me.
Yeah.
And we had nothing. So as a date, we would go to the local park, buy some cheese and bread. And that was our date. Sitting on a blanket at the park. And I remember fondly the support. And that was where I realized it was a lot more than just friendship.
Mm.
And it was, gosh, I think within a year of that, that I proposed, and then sort of got back together with my family. I had a rough road with my mom forever.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until I was older that I realized, and having been through the same experience with a few other people, I realized my mother was bipolar.
Mm.
And there were a lot of other mitigating circumstances.
Yeah.
My uncle was a drug addict.
Yeah.
And forever, we would go visit him. And I thought he was part of the Conservation Corps.
Oh.
What he was in was a low security prison.
Oh, wow.
Parents never explained it to me until he lapsed, robbed a liquor store with a gun, and ended up in Chino State Prison. And when we went to visit Uncle there was the Constantine wire all around the place. The guards had to search everything. And at 15, I was kind of, whoa, what was that? Uncle was not the cool dude I thought he was.
Yeah.
So, we kind of went through a lot. The other thing that I didn't put in the letter was that when I first met Pat, she lived in a separate garage. They had built a little room on the side of the garage,
Yeah.
and that was separate from the house. Well, the reason for that was that her stepdad was abusing her. She never spoke of it to me until we'd been married for quite a while, and even then, I know less about it than other family members.
Yeah.
And she always tried to protect me from things, and I don't think she wanted to show weakness. She had a bit of Irish in her,
Oh.
and she was very tough.
Yeah.
So we got married in 74.
Yeah.
And at the time I was a truck driver, literally. She was working as a credit for credit management at Sony and Fisher. She bounced around a lot.
Yeah.
I remember one day very well, I was on the loading dock trying to load up my truck, and there was a fellow, his name was Doug Bronzy. He was, I'll try to keep my language clear because just to be
This
honest,
is a clean
my son,
podcast, Bob.
Okay. So I'll, just walk me upside the head if I slip off. Doug was a real bum,
Yeah.
and SOB.
Yeah.
And he just was full of himself. And I remember one day I'm on the loading dock and he was yelling at me for some dumb reason that had nothing to do with me. And I looked at him and I decided at that moment I was going to go back to school.
Oh, yeah.
I had tried and I kept throwing me out because I was very rebellious, which is probably why my mom threw me out. And I remember going home and Pat and I talked and we decided we would put each other through college.
I love that.
Wow.
So the deal was whoever was going to school, whoever was doing the working, they got the car because you only have one car.
Yeah. Yeah.
I had a motorcycle. That was about it. But so she told me I should go first. It was fine. So I went to Cal State Northridge. I started at junior college. Then I went to Cal State Northridge because, again, I was still rebellious, but now I was a little more focused.
Yeah.
And then it took me about 6 years to get through. And I had some very good teachers and very good mentors. And then Pat went to school for business.
Yeah.
And graduated, and I got her picture on my desk. And so it was kind of cool. And it was after that we were living during that entire time in some government subsidized apartment complex. And I came home one night, and we had known it was kind of a rough neighborhood. And my motorcycle had been vandalized numerous times. Our car, they tried to tow off. I come home one night, and the police helicopters are circling. A cop on a motorcycle with a shotgun was riding through the complex. I looked at Pat and I said, now that I've got a job, we ought to move.
Yeah. Probably a good idea.
Yeah.
Probably a good idea. So you guys move and
we rented a condo, and it was in a cool spot at the very end, and the end, the back, our condo looked out over the wild woods.
Yeah.
It was beautiful.
Yeah.
And so Pat finished up going to school there. And about a year after she graduated, she was the first in her family to go to school.
Wow.
Originally from Indiana, a bunch of farm folks is the way she used to describe it. Fighting Irish kind of thing. So, her family was really proud of her. And I was too, that she pulled herself up and became, a business person.
Yeah.
Out of, and nothing bad against the rest of the family. But for her, I didn't realize at the time, I think, kind of fall back here just a little bit. I didn't realize at the time how much she looked up to me. And it was actually quite the other way around.
Yeah.
I was always impressed, she was on top of stuff, handled stuff. Me, I'm the left half, it's like something happens, takes me a second to kind of figure out what the new road is,
Yeah.
Whereas with her, she was great at guessing and just, try this, try that, and then it works, right?
right.
Sounds like a perfect partnership.
Oh, it was great.
Yeah.
And so at the condo, some of the things she did that have stuck with me forever. We had a couple move in next door that had just immigrated from South Africa. Didn't know anybody here. Didn't have any family here. And so on Thanksgiving and Christmas, she made it a point to invite the strays, as she called them, to give them a place to be.
Yeah.
And I always thought, what, that's a measure of somebody's heart.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So let me jump. I'm going to jump fast forward because you have life. Like life happens and you guys start a business. You have kids and life probably goes as normal ups and downs, right? Normal ups and downs as you would expect. And at some point, care starts to come into your life. The need for care comes into your life. But before we start that, I'm going to take a break.
Okay.
We'll be right back. I don't know about you, but my inbox is always cluttered with useless emails. But there's one I always open, the Confessions of a Reluctant Caregiver newsletter. You may say, Natalie, what makes yours so special? Well, I'm biased, but don't just take my word for it. Here's what our subscribers say they love. First, it comes once per month, and you can read it in under 5 minutes. Next, you'll find amazing tips and resources to use in your everyday life. And who doesn't love a recommendation? These sisters do. which is why we share sister-approved products and discount links to save you time and money. And of course, you're first to know about the upcoming month's confessions. Just like our show, you're guaranteed to relate, be inspired, leave with helpful tips and resources, and of course, laugh. Go to our website, confessionsofareluctantcaregiver.com, to sign up for our newsletter today.
Hey, everybody, we are back here with Bob K. He has given us the background on his life and his relationship with his beautiful wife, Pat. So he's got this, Bob, you got this wonderful story, this love story, this partnership, and you've got this life that you've built, but caregiving starts. And tell us a little bit about when it began, when you noticed that need, when that started.
It started earlier than I realized, actually, because Pat had gone through brachytherapy, a couple of other things. She didn't. Her version of breast cancer started with cysts around the margins, and she'd been in and out. They did biopsies, and then they did the brachytherapy. We thought everything had been fine. I had been through some shoulder surgery. As part of the pain pills they gave me was some OxyContin. I had a bottle of 25 of them, and I put them right here in the bottom of my desk because I didn't like them. I took one, and it was great on the first day, but after that, and I stashed the pills away. After everything had passed, and Pat had passed away, I went in that drawer, and I discovered those pills were gone. She had been, she was a very tough woman, so she'd been in a lot of pain and took those pills before the doctors finally owned up that she was sick. So because of the business, the business up and down, but overall, mostly because of Pat's business acumen. I'm the engineer. She was the business marketing person. We did good enough. We had an opportunity to buy our retirement home, which is on a lake up in Montana. It's the most beautiful place on the face of the planet. And we would go visit all the time. Sometimes she had to go by herself because the needs at work. It was our 45th anniversary. We were up there. And she'd been having a little trouble moving around. Her hips were bothering her, her back. The ride on the airplane was a little difficult. But we went up to celebrate. And she, on our anniversary night, it was our 45th anniversary, she showed me the medical test report. She had just gotten it, downloaded it, and it confirmed that she was at stage 4 breast cancer at that point. And she'd been back and forth, and I have terrible feelings about the medical system because she was denied mammograms at one point, even though it was obvious something else was going on. And they claimed that she was clear of the cancer. It was not true. So I remember very well the very next morning after she told me, I got up and I made her French toast breakfast. It was at that point we went back and decided that we would talk to the doctors about starting chemo. What had actually happened was by that point in time, the cancer had already metastasized into her bones. Because they were not giving her the mammograms and the doctors and the insurance companies kept reducing, if you will, the amount of preventative care, it had metastasized into her bones. Her back bothered her. She went to a chiropractor to figure out what was wrong with her back. And it's a good thing I don't know who this person is because I would be in prison. He adjusted her back and fractured her spine in 2 places and her hips in 2 places. And up until the day she died, the majority of the pain came from those broken bones. So I didn't realize that it was at that moment that the caregiving started. It kind of hit me in the face when we talked to the oncologist and we started the chemo. And it started, I forget exactly how often we went at first. My daughter helped quite a bit. We made sure that one of the 2 of us was always with her when we went. I think the part that hit me in the face the hardest, though, was bear with me, but you would go into a little room at the oncologist, there'd be maybe 5 or 6 other people there who were also receiving chemotherapy.
Yeah.
And what I came to see was 5 out of 6 were women. Half of them would tell me that their husbands left them when they found out that they had terminal cancer.
Mm.
It was like, that is not going to be me.
Yeah. Yeah.
So of course, the side effects from chemo, everybody knows. And, Stephanie and I did our best to make her as comfortable as possible. We live in a 2-story house. At one point, she no longer could go upstairs.
Right.
Where the bedroom was. So I slept on the floor by her a couple of times. My back could not take that.
Right.
And she was on the couch or in the chair. And that's when the caregiving really started.
What did that look like, Bob? Because you've got a full business you've got your engineering consultant business that you're doing, and she has cancer. It's pretty advanced, and you're coordinating with your daughter. Excuse me. And what does that caregiving start to look like, and time, and you can throw in some feelings in there if you feel like it.
Well, I was just trying to think of the things that are most important. So we actually are 2 companies. Pat and I had started up a robotics company in 2016 to try to build robots, right? And that's pivoted now based on that experience. But Pat was leading the marketing. The whole time we ran the business, it was Pat that made the business go. I'm just the engineer. So I learned a lot from her, and vice versa. Some of the most successful engineering projects we had, Pat ran them when we had nobody else to do them at the time. So we were both very adept at that. But in 2019, when we found out she had cancer, she had already started the marketing, and we had a board of directors, we had a bunch of advisors. In November of that year, only 2 months before she would pass, she held a marketing meeting. She went into work. She had lost her hair. We realized wearing a wig sounds great, but it's just too freaking hot. So she had a little hat on. She held the marketing meeting. There were 7 other business people there that were not part of the company. They were strategic advisors, potential customers. She was going to go in there and run that meeting. That was her last time into the office. But what was amazing to me, and one of the things that continues to motivate me, there were 6 people that have been with the company for 10 years. During the time that Stephanie and I stayed home to take care of Pat, about 3 months towards the end there, we couldn't go in at all. The crew ran the company. We took care of the billing and the finance and the other stuff, but they made the customers happy. And so I've held a number of Christmas parties and other meetings since then, and I've just flat out told them they are my extended family, whether they like it or not.
They're caregivers.
Yeah, and that's a testament
Exactly.
to you, though, Bob, and the person that you and Pat are. In this environment, to keep employees, but to keep employees that become family, that care about you. That's a testament to who you are as people.
I appreciate that, JJ, but I write the word team with a capital
Absolutely.
T because they're very special. Yeah. And since then, what I've done is I have appointed 4 of them, which includes my daughter, to what I call the steering committee, because now I'm sole board member, so I can do whatever I want, right? But I have explained to them that I'm now 71 years old, and although I feel okay, I don't think anything bad is going to happen. We've built something where the company culture is important to us. They want to continue on. So the purpose of the steering committee is I'm easing them into understanding how to run the business.
Of course.
And ultimately, they will take over. So that's one of the byproducts that came out of this, because Pat and I always cared about the team.
Yeah.
We've always struggled when we had bad people that it took a while for us to see them and get rid of them, versus the ones that were, we were together. We were the team with a capital T. So they inspire me continuously. My daughter, same thing. When it was very clear the chemo had to continue on, we had talked to Pat, and she elected to have a port put in. You get tired of getting stuck with the needles. Well, Steph and I had to learn how to clean and flush the port here at home. We got a hospital bed. There were times where we had to arrange for an IV. We had a couple of times that we had to call emergency, and because she reacted badly to the chemo or had a moment. And at one point, she had a walker, a rolling one you could sit down or use, and it slipped out and she fell. And I began to realize how difficult it is to help somebody up who has a fractured hip. The pain was terrible. Towards the end, she was taking OxyContin, morphine, and fentanyl patches to deal with pain. And that was hard to watch, I will admit. But she needed, a bath. She needed dinner, whatever. Steph and I did it all. Steph moved back in the house and stayed with us.
I was going to ask you
right,
about
to
your
help.
daughter. So it sounds like she did move back in, and she was your right hand, I guess?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, and since she stepped up to take over the finance and the business for the company. So between the two of us, we're a father-daughter powerhouse. As you
Well,
might
it sounds
say.
like you had some experience, though, from your caregiving of just kind of amplifying that relationship. That's a byproduct of that teamwork, because I hear a lot, because I'm going to stick with caregiving, Bob. I hear a lot of what you're saying, that, practices, that things that you do in caregiving translates over into other parts of your life. You're working with other people, you're negotiating, you're collaborating. There are probably frustrating moments, and how do you have difficult conversations? So, I hear that. And so, your daughter moves back in, and I'm sure that's a different dynamic for you and your wife. I mean, you probably, I don't doubt for a second that you love your daughter, but there's a third person back in the house.
It's
And
true.
so
Very true.
what was life like for you guys during that time? And did you have training? Here's a different question. I'll go back to what was life like. Did you have training on how to do the bathing, formal training, how to do the bathing, how to do the lifting, proper lifting to make sure that you didn't get hurt? I mean, Bob, you're not a spring chicken.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. And the answer is none. And I have some of the stuff we do at work is medically related. We design medical products. So I have been, aware of, hospital treatment, how to roll somebody over, things like that. But, taking out a splinter out of her finger, I can go in there on myself and take an X-Acto knife and slice myself open, no problem. I could not bring myself to do something to hurt her. I couldn't take her splinter out. So to learn how to overcome that, I mean, now she's got a port. Now I have to help with the IV. Now I've got to help bathe her. We kept an emesis basin very close by. Matter of fact, I had two of them, so we could swap them out, keep them clean, and they wouldn't smell, right? I mean, things like that. And, though it's a test of how much you love somebody, I guess, is maybe one way to say it, right? Because it's like, what, she was like, I'm really sorry. I was like, I didn't mean to, throw up in front of everybody while everybody else is eating dinner. We're like, we don't care. It doesn't matter to us. It's all right. We'll clean it up. And I think I was trying to be sensitive to, it probably bothered her more than us. Do you know what I mean?
I sure do.
And for us, it's like, you just go get the wet cloth and you clean it up, right? So something I do want to say is my son was in the Marine Corps, served in combat, and has PTSD as a permanent disability. I met a bunch of his friends who were in combat. I'm familiar with PTSD up close and personal. This experience has shown me I am on the autism spectrum and I have PTSD. But in my role at work, leadership is the most important thing to creating that company culture. And leadership is not playing the poor me card. It's not having a bad day. It's those frustrations and the ups and downs, being stoic at the right times, being emotional at the right times with not only the crew, but your customers. And then dealing with the government and the taxes and all the other stuff you got to deal with, right? And I've come to realize that that's the test of true leadership out of all this. If you want to take this caregiving experience and say, well, how do I put a silver lining on this? It's like, yes, I know I have PTSD. How do I deal with it? I cannot cure it. Yeah. I'll just tell you up front, until the day I die, I will still have all those symptoms. I can't go to the movies with friends. I can't watch movies are one of the worst triggers for me. And I could be watching Harry Potter and just have a moment where I just cry my eyeballs out. I can't do that when I'm with somebody anymore, right? So one of the things I've learned is not compartmentalize, but how to separate that part, because unfortunately, showing weakness as a leader is only good for a certain part. Past another part, you got to be George S. Patton. Like, yes, I'm sending people to their death. Yes, I've been shot in the arm, but we need to go take that hill. Now, in my case, it's because I need to make the company survive for my extended family and my daughter. And so you have to overcome those things. And I think recognizing that, taking the personal time to recognize I'm also on the spectrum. If I get prevented from solving a problem, it can become a real issue. And I have to learn how to deal with that.
So are you attributing the PTSD in your mind to the caregiving experience with your wife?
Absolutely.
And what are some of the things let's go a little deeper, because we're a little high level right now. So what are some of the thoughts and feelings and actions? What are some of those things that you really say? Because I can tell you, as a mental health professional, we would say PTSD it would not be attributed to a caregiving experience, which I'm like, that's awfully clinical. That's awfully rigid. But tell me some of the emotions and thoughts and feelings that you had that really you say, this is a traumatic experience to the level that, I believe that it could be clinically diagnosed. So tell me, what are some of the things that happen?
I have some friends that worked at Boeing, and I watched the TV show about the Boeing experience with the crash of the 767, the 767, I forget which one it is. There was a scene on there with a dad who had to testify in front of Congress. His daughter was killed. And he said to them, this is a great story to you, but I've had to tell this story 50 times over and over and over again. Having to deal with the banks, the insurance companies, the property change. I have had to explain that story. And every single time they make me explain the story or pull out the death certificate or this or that, and way more than 50 times. Even to this day, one of the banks refuses to take her name off of one of the loans. I have the death certificate. Why do I have to explain this again? I got to pull the death certificate out and do this again. And Natalie, the problem, ultimately the thing that makes that hard, the event that ties this in was that 2 days before she died, she was in the hospital because she had had an episode we just couldn't handle here at home. And I remember she was taking morphine, like strong, and they put fentanyl patches on her. And she was laying in bed, and she had a lucid moment, and she looked up at me and said, "This is it, isn't it?" I said, yes. She made me promise to do 4 things. I've done all but 1. And that's because she wanted me to take care of myself. But I needed to take care of everyone else. that every single time I give somebody a copy of the death certificate or they make me explain the story again, it's that moment that I remember. So it's, it's not a flashback in the common sense, let's
Well,
say.
in some definitions,
Okay. To me,
exactly.
it is. Because it takes me back to that
Absolutely.
moment, boy. And, she was, I said, I decided I never lied to Pat. Yeah, I have told a white lie, a fib now and again. I mean, I'm a husband,
We're imperfect
we do
people.
stupid
It's
stuff.
okay. Trust me,
Right.
I've done my own
And
share, Bob.
that makes
That's
you
right.
human, right? So, I wasn't going to lie to her then. So I told her, yes, this was it. And she said, we had a pretty good time together.
Well, I'm gonna stop real quick and take a break.
Okay.
And we'll be right back. Hey, ladies, I need to interrupt for just a second to share about the Sisterhood membership. It's basically a sale every day. And the best part, it's free. Here's the details. We're partnering with our friends at Benefit Hub and other care partners to save you money. With over 200,000 participating companies across the US and abroad, you'll find discounts at your favorite local stores, huge savings on vacations, amazing deals on home, auto, and supplemental insurances, and everything in between. Go to confessionsofareluctantcaregiver.com to sign up, and then definitely tell your friends about it. They can join too. Trust me, there's a discount for everyone. And don't forget, it's free. Okay, back to confessing.
Hey everybody, we're back here with Bob K. And we've talked about the experience with his wife and PTSD that can come from that trauma. But Bob's been very honest with his wife in those last days. And Bob, I'm incredibly, I believe, I do believe in PTSD from the trauma. I think about when our dad passed. And interestingly enough, though, he passed with no warning. And I guess in hindsight, I wish I had had that moment. Even if that journey had been, even if the journey had been a longer illness for me, I wish I had had that moment to say, because there's so much I would have wanted to say, I guess. So.
Yes.
And I think the thing I keep hearing from you over and over is how you've taken that experience and how it brought you closer to your daughter, how it made you a better leader, a better business owner, a better person for you. I mean, she kept pushing you even in her worst time. And yet on the other side of it, sir, you never left. You never quit. You never walked away. You did the best that you could. And this is what happens. This is the hateful, terrible truth. And we don't talk a lot. I think the parts that you're talking about around the death certificate, that repeating of the story, because I think that's, as a healthcare system, we require people to tell the story over and over again. And that's something that is not done well and tracked well because of a lack of technology, honestly, and how, we can use the same system. We have to enter it every time and just tell us the story. And I think it's, when it becomes personal when you have your own personal experience with it. Because it's easy for, anybody to say, okay, well, just tell me what happened again. What is that, sir? Yes. But once you experience yourself, I think that's where empathy is built.
Yeah. Compassion.
Yes, I completely agree. And a really good example of that, Natalie, is of the Marines that I met when they're not well, when they come back. And someone does this thing of thank you for your service. I now understand firsthand why not only is it meaningless, but that automatically makes them put you in a category that's not good. Because but it's exactly the same thing as with me when someone says, you have my condolences, I'm sorry for your loss. They're saying the wrong thing because nobody's told them how to deal with it. So like with the Marines, it's not, you don't need to say thank you for your service. You're like, hey, dude, you need a cup of coffee? come on over, right? You want me to buy you lunch? Or it's just, hey, you want to have a beer? And it's you should never ask. Never, ever ask, like, what did you go through? If they want to talk, they will. And then what you do is listen. Now, what my daughter has taught me about the condolences part is exactly the same kind of thing, except I've learned that unlike the Marines are rough and tough, right? It's like, no, you need to be a little more gracious to say, thank you. I appreciate that you're sharing, that you're trying to be gracious, right? So I have to forgive them for not knowing what to say.
That's it.
Do you see what I mean?
100%. Because here's the thing, Bob. It's, as a caregiver, it's just another way I have to care for another person. So when I tell people that,
Yes.
if I say our mom has Parkinson's, our mom has, or my husband's a head and neck cancer survivor, it's always automatic. It's not because we're Southerners. It's like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. And a lot of people will automatically say, oh, that's okay. No, it's not. Just say thank you. Just, okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. I appreciate that. But people don't know how to approach caregivers.
Yeah.
That's what this comes down to.
Yeah,
I just don't know what to say.
absolutely true.
A lot of times I'll tell people,
Right.
that sucks. I hate that for you. Is there anything I can do for you? Can I do something for you? Because you've already served.
Yeah. Yeah. One of our longest running clients, I'm Armenian. It turns out Alan's also Armenian. He knew Pat, because she had done the billing. He kind of, knew her. And when he found out she passed away, he came into work while I was there and gave me a hug. Forever, Alan will be my friend.
The power of a hug.
Just, yeah. Well, he gave a crap, and he and so in a way, he answered the question properly. You know what I'm saying? Instead of saying, I'm sorry for your loss, it's just like, words aren't going to cut it. Come here.
Physical connection is powerful, especially when we're in our hardest times. I can tell you, because I don't think JJ will mind. JJ and I were talking the other night, and there were some tears involved. And she wasn't mad. She was just hurt. And I was on the couch, and she was sitting on the chair, and I felt this human connection that was like, she needs a hug. She needs a hug. And so then, and it's going to be all right. I love you. I accept you. You know what I mean? And we all need that. That's the thing. That's what, in all of our fierce independence, and I am a fiercely independent caregiver. Like, Bob, I ran a company and I'm all like, we'd like to joke about having snot sandwiches. Oh, yeah. Because some days are hard. I don't know if you, but I've had handful of snot sandwiches where I feel bad for myself and I can't believe this has happened to me and I didn't sign up for this. And then I get mad for a while, but there's the power of connection. And that's why we do the podcast. Like, we talk about it and we make it comfortable and we talk about the hard things. And when you talk about it, it all of a sudden feels much more manageable.
Yeah. While Pat was in the hospital, she would still fire up her laptop.
Of course she did.
Before it got too close to the end. And she would do the emails and whatever. We had a customer who was late in paying, owed us money. She would wrestle with him over emails. And then finally she said, I'm just going to put a stop work. We did that a couple of times. After Pat passed away, Stephanie and I finally said, look, we're done with this guy. He's not paying. We're going to stop work. So 1 month after Pat passed away, a number of major events happened in my life. That company turned around and sued us for non-delivery, but we'd stopped work because they weren't paying. And the lawsuit is finally getting settled within this month. That drug out. I had to disown my brother for being a heroin addict. Never in my life had I been served papers. Bank of America was our bank for the entire time we were married. Because of COVID and the impact on the business, I was late in paying on the credit card. They sent me to collections along with Citibank. I could go down the rest of the list, but there were 11 major events. And getting through those was not as bad a challenge, let's say, as dealing with Pat, but it added to it, right? And I came to realize it's the real test of who you are. And it comes back to that leadership thing and being a good dad and being a good person, right? Are you going to give up? No, or not? So what it really did for me was it prompted some serious introspection about who in the heck are you really?
Yeah.
Right? And you're right. One of the reasons I believe I'm on the autism spectrum is I don't take compliments. It's very difficult for me to accept compliments. I could be the guy that landed on the moon, and I still will not accept that I did any major thing here. I'm just doing my job, okay? But you can't do that in the leadership role, and you need to see it both ways, right? So, it made me grow up in a funny way, really, right? I mean, I know it sounds kind of odd, but I would say I'm a better person, a better leader. Not perfect. Don't get me wrong. I got all my own terrible things I've still done. But one of the things that I started doing as self-therapy is I've started mentoring. And even though the business, it's only just recently we've finally gotten back in the black after 4 or 5 years. Throughout that whole time, even when I've come home and thought, oh my God, how are we can't meet payroll. How are we going to, get the taxes paid? And I'll get on the phone with some young college student that's got some gadget they want to launch as a product and they need help. And I found that by giving, I get
absolutely.
better.
Other care is the best self-care that you can find.
Yeah.
I'm going to tell you that right now. Other care is the best self-care.
Yeah.
And Jay, we're at our time. Like, holy cow. Oh, no,
I'm
don't be
sorry.
sorry,
No, I'm
Bob.
sorry.
Good gracious. We have to do some sister questions, though.
It's true.
So this is the best. Okay, I love that.
I'm ready.
Jay, you start because you know mine.
So I saw a coffee mug in your hand. So was that a gift, or are you a Harley rider?
I think we need to know. And if so, what model?
Both. Pat and I when we dated, she rode on my little Yamaha 250 everywhere with me because I didn't have a car. So when, business was good, she took me to the Harley store. I was like, it was a guy's dream. And she said, they're having a sale.
I love it.
Pick
What did
one.
you get?
So I picked a lowrider, a Dynaglide. And I've had 2 of them. And I still have the one. And I put everything on the back. I ride up the coast highway, put my camera, take pictures. She'd say, go away for 3 days. Go take pictures. Do what you like. So, of course, she bought me the mug.
And I say that, Bob, because our dad was a big Harley rider, but some of the pictures, my favorite pictures, where Mom, she has advanced Parkinson's, but he would put her on the back of his bike and they would ride.
Yeah, he had an electric light, so the tour pack could surround her so she could stay in.
So that was her. That was freedom. That was the freedom. Yeah. So.
Yeah, I will tell you, Bob, I had a street glide. My husband has a street glide, and so we also had a big bear chopper. We're motorcycle people, and so I can tell you right now, I like to pretend I'm a 1%er, but I've got full chaps and all my leather and everything, and we love to ride. And there's something so freeing, and that's definitely a self-care, like definitely a self-care when you can get on the motorcycle, have that wind in your face, and there's nothing else. I think that's fantastic. I knew, Jay, you were going to ask about the Harley Cup because I was like, I already saw the Harley Cup. I knew he was one of my people.
Harley brings me joy. We talk about things that that bring us joy, and they always immediately remind me of my dad, and that's a joyous thing. So.
Yep.
Yes.
All right. So, Bob, here's my question. What is your favorite guilty pleasure? The one thing that you do just for you?
I've been a video gamer forever. So once after Pat passed, my son lives in Montana. He moved up there to get away from the heat because it's cold up there. So it's one of the triggers, right? My daughter had an apartment out in Oxnard, a little ways away. So they bought me a PS4 for my birthday. And we started out every Sunday night, the 3 of us would get online together and play. not realizing when I was way back in college before all this took off, I used to write my own computer games that would play. So they've introduced me to a number of different kind of games. Some are the first-person shooters, which are good for guys, but there's a couple that are role-playing games that are good. And so that's my guilty pleasure.
I'm going to tell you
that sounds crazy.
That's one of our most unique ones. We've not heard that.
They don't know about our Atari, our Nintendo skills. Those kids have no idea about our skills.
We love Jeopardy. And because my name of Jeopardy on when we used to have, I can't even remember, it was Coleco. And
we had a Coleco.
Yeah. This shows our age.
Yeah.
But Emily and JJ and I would play. And my name was Snotty. And then that way when I'd click in, I'd look at them and I'd go, Snotty Nose. Because I thought that was so funny. So just FYI, although I prefer the easy like duck hunt, like I like duck hunt where I can have the Frogger. I like to keep it simple, stupid. So, well, Bob, thank you so much for being with us. This has been such a pleasure. We absolutely love you. You're definitely a brother in care and sharing so much. And we are grateful to have learned more about Pat and all the wisdom that you're offering. Guys, until we confess again, we'll see you next time.